Hey, future CRNA, welcome to the CSPA podcast. CSPA has helped over 3,000 nurses like you gain acceptance into schools across the country. Tune in for inspiration and actionable takeaways to help you from start to finish.
So I get my BSN in December. I have my AD and I got that last year. So I've been working in the surgical ICU for the past year now. And I've been just trying to look at schools that I'd be interested in. But when I was taking my prerequisites, I had gotten a C in microbiology. So right now my overall science GPA is a 3.0. And I was looking to increase it. I did reach out to some program directors, and some said to take advanced level, like graduate level science courses, and others were just saying that they would recommend to, just take other classes to improve the GPA and get involved. So I just wanted to know, is there any advice on what to do if you do have a struggling GPA for those core science classes? And then also, where would be a good place to take the graduate level courses online?
Yeah, okay, cool. So let me grab a resource real quick while I'm thinking about it. It's going to be long, but I'll just kind of put some info in the chat here.
Okay.
This just giving you an overarching idea of where a lot of our community have been successful at taking courses to kind of combat a lower GPA.
Mm-hmm.
As far as having a microbiology, having the C, I mean, that's out of all the science courses, that's actually the one that's relatively the least relevant towards the CRNA curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So while some programs may tell you we want all your core sciences to be a B or better, and they may have you retake a course like microbio, the vast majority, since it seems honestly kind of like a waste, given that it's not really knowledge that really applies in any way to the anesthesia curriculum, the vast majority would prefer you to spend your time doing sciences that would actually matter, such as chemistry, physics, advanced pathophysiology, advanced pharmacology, advanced health assessment, things like that. I would err on the side, if you've already talked to the programs, that's kind of what they were kind of pushing you. I would consider some advanced sciences, and I would, as far as what advanced sciences, I think that's kind of up to you. I think kind of the way to go is look at what your other undergrad science grades are. Were there any areas that maybe you got a B in those courses, like an advanced pathophysiology course, for example, or anatomy pathophysiology, maybe you had a B in that. So maybe you have an opportunity to get an A in an advanced pathophysiology course to show them the growth. Same thing with chemistry. Maybe you have, Gen Chem, and maybe you got a B in that, but maybe now is your opportunity to take biochemistry or OChem and get an A to, again, show them the growth. So I would look for a course that you have room to grow. Meaning if you got an A in anatomy pathophysiology in undergrad or anatomy, you probably should take a course that maybe you got a B in. That way you can get an A and show them the growth versus taking a course you already had an A in and taking it again and getting an A again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's something I'm looking into. It's also just a little overwhelming because some of the schools said that they wouldn't even calculate me taking graduate level courses in the science GPA. So then it's I don't want to have to invest so much time into time and money into, doing these advanced level courses if some of the schools wouldn't even accept it.
Yeah, and I don't know how flexible you are with what schools you apply to. Some schools don't have any, I don't know if I would call it forgiveness per se, but they kind of look at what you originally got, and that is your core science GPA, and there's really no wiggle room to really impact it. However, it does still make an impact to take graduate level courses and get an A. It does help overcome some of their hesitations around giving you a chance to interview and acceptance. So either way, it still helps, but there are plenty of schools who will count those graduate level courses into your core science GPA, which would give you a much better odds of being competitive for that particular program. So it might just be a matter of, if you're considering several schools, maybe making your top priority schools the ones who are a little more lenient and able to work with you. By the way, if you hear screaming, I apologize. Our kids are home, so I don't know what they're doing. As long as they're not, they just spilled red juice all over one of our couches. So I was like, as long as you're not going to mess right now, just stay alive. Anyhow, so yeah, I think that would be my recommendation, is to try to tailor your application process to schools who will work with you, especially if you're going to be spending the time and money to take these courses, to have it actually count towards boosting your GPA. But know that even if you're well, I'm limited, I can only have a handful of schools and I'm not willing to move or relocate to go to school, so it is kind of what it is. Just know that even if you were to take the time and energy to put into that course, it will help you overall. But I do think it will help you even more so if you can find schools who are willing to kind of boost your GPA with it.
One more thing I do want to ask is for interview preparation. I just wanted to know, how do you guys support interview questions? And, because I know they can ask you things about medications down to the cellular level, which isn't really things that we think about every day. So Is that something that we kind of get into during that to make sure that we're prepared to answer those kinds of questions?
Yes, that is definitely something that CSPA, we have Dr. Ballister has done the majority of our pharmacology courses, and she was assistant program director at MUSC for well over a decade, and she loves pharmacology. She's really, really good at teaching it. So she's taught a lot of our pharmacology. I also have some pharmacology courses in there along with Dr. Wilson, who also a seasoned faculty member who has taught at USC for over a decade. So there are a lot of pharmacology courses inside the academy to help prepare you to kind of have a better, I should say, baseline understanding of what they would expect you to know in the interview. But a lot of CSBA, even though we go over resumes and personal statements, and we do also coach on emotional intelligence and what I call kind of soft skills, because believe it or not, that really moves the needle almost more so sometimes than clinical knowledge, because programs will say, well, I can teach you pharmacology and pathophysiology, but it's harder for me to teach you, EI and kind of more softer communication skills. So they like to kind of see students come in strong in that area. So we do a lot around that. But that being said, CSB is kind of designed to be an educational platform in addition to application and interview prep. So kind of think of it as our interview prep is education. It is critical care knowledge. That is essentially how we gear you up for the interview. But we also then have extensive mock interview library that you can review actual interview questions and kind of assess how people answer them, how you would answer them. Also in our weekly coaching that a lot of our seasoned CRNA faculty do now, you can say, hey, give me an EI question. And on the spot, they can ask you a question, give you feedback. Same with clinical questions. So there are opportunities to kind of gauge if you're struggling with a specific type of topic, put yourself in the hot seat on one of the coaching calls, and we're happy to do stuff like that too.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right, and I don't know whose hand up was up first, but Anthony, right now I see you on here.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So I just worked. I finished my first year as an RN.
Nice.
I was in the emergency department.
Okay.
And during that time, I got my TCRN. And I'm just transitioning now after doing my year into a CTICU and high acuity. It has like heart transplants, lung transplants, impellos, intra-aortic balloon pumps, LVADs, swans. So I'll get a good experience in like a high acuity ICU, I definitely think. But my question was very similar to Yasmin's. I took anatomy and physiology. It was my B minus. I got in it for the first one, and so I guess that I definitely have to retake. Stats also I'll have to retake because it has to be within 5 years for the programs I'm looking at. And my science GPA is a 3.5. So I was just wondering, kind of, on like a broader scale, those are two classes I definitely have to retake, but I could boost my science GPA more by retaking some other classes to get it higher than a 3.5, like A&P2, I got a B plus in. So I was just wondering if I should prioritize that or, kind of just on a broader scale, how would you recommend like getting, because I have to get my CCRN as well, but like CMC and CSC, those certifications, I guess throughout the entire application process, like how to prioritize what you should really like focus on, because I know I have to retake certain classes. I know I have to do that, and that'll take like time and energy to do that. So should I prioritize getting like a certification over retaking my A&P2, or should I focus on like research and involvement? Or I plan on doing like a mix of all of them, but how would you like say is your prioritization?
That's good. Good. So I don't know if you've reached out to the programs that have that B or better requirement for a course like A&P. You've done A&P1, A&P2, and you're asking, since you technically didn't meet that B requirement, to retake A&P1. But you may be better served, instead of retaking an undergrad A&P1 course, to take a graduate level A&P course, and that would fulfill that requirement to have, that it would more than fulfill the requirement of A&P1. So that could be something you could look into. And I would specifically ask them, instead of retaking an undergrad A&P1 course, could I take a graduate level A&P course to make up for this B minus I have in this prerequisite course? So I would start there with that. And then same with stats. You can take a grad stats. Not all of them require grad stats, but it's, again, going to boost your GPA more and show them that you can handle a graduate level course. There are actually a lot of CRNA programs who require graduate statistics over undergrad statistics. So something else you can consider in lines with needing to have that requirement. Now, if they only require an undergrad stats to be within 5 years, and you take an advanced A&P course, then I would stop there. Meaning, I don't think you need to take 2 graduate level courses, but I'm just trying to, because you already have a 3.5. If you had a lower GPA, I probably would recommend 2 graduate level courses to kind of get your GPA up there more, because it's going to be weighted heavier. But it sounds like you kind of have a lot already on your plate between needing to take those 2 courses. So I would aim to try to take an advanced A&P course along with meeting that statistic requirement, even if it's undergrad level, to be within 5 years. That in itself, if you got 2 A's in those 2 courses, you would have, probably above close to 3.6 at that point, which would be pretty competitive. And as far as other certifications, you already have your TCRN. So I personally would focus on your CCRN and then call it quits there.
Okay.
I don't think there's necessarily a need for you to get additional certifications. You would be better off if you had any additional time to look for leadership roles on your unit, such as, precepting or getting involved in a unit leadership committee role. So those would be versus just another certification. If you already have your TCRN plus your CCRN, I think that's plenty of certifications.
Okay. All right. So you're saying like some programs definitely do accept like a grad level A&P and they'll just the B minus they'll be okay with?
Yes, but I would confirm that prior to, don't make that assumption, but more than
Okay.
likely, if you say, instead of retaking an undergrad A&P 1, would you count an advanced A&P course to kind of make up for my B minus to meet that B or better requirement? Most of the time, hands down, they're going to say absolutely, because that shows the rigor of a graduate level A&P course, which is exactly what you're going to be, expected to, be able to do in CRNA school. So that would pull more weight for the majority of programs. So I would confirm that with that specific school who has that requirement, just to make sure.
All right. And then I just have 2 more quick questions. So for retaking those classes, I asked them about Portage Learning. That just like, does that look any better or worse compared to like going through an online university or?
Yeah, the 2 P's, Phoenix and Portage, PP. I remember those are the 2 schools that some schools don't feel strongly about.
Okay.
And unfortunately, some don't care. So it's like you're kind of like, you have to kind of figure out where your program, how they view those particular programs, Phoenix and Portage. I would say 50-50. I would say 50% of schools really don't care. And it's like, take it where you can get it, where it's most affordable and it's convenient, where you can take it online. Cool. Other programs will flat out say, we won't consider courses taken at these schools, so don't do it. So I would, again, when you're emailing the school, I would, in a very brief, consolidated way, you can even use GPT to help you get an email. So it's like really brief, consolidated to the point. Ask them about taking graduate level A&P course to replace the B minus in your A&P 1, and then ask them, specifically about taking those courses either at Phoenix or Portage, or if they have a preference on where you would take it. And I provided a list here on the side of a lot of where a lot of our students have taken courses. Now, I'm sure Phoenix and Portage are on this list because a lot of them have taken them there. But most of the time, students are successful in taking them at those colleges when they've kind of confirmed that it's approved by their programs.
Okay. And then last question. So my overall GPA is a 3.81. And then my science was the 3.5 currently, but that would go up if I got A's in like the grad level and the statistics and A&P. So, I mean, are those like my overall being higher than my science? Does that look like, do they really evaluate that, or they're 2 like separate entities?
They're usually 2 separate entities. However, they care a lot more about science than overall. Now, don't get me wrong, a 3.8 is an incredibly strong overall GPA. And that they definitely will look at that, and be, that's a great GPA. But that being said, I guess it's like one of those pictures where you want to paint a picture of, if you have a lower overall GPA, but a really strong science, you're more likely to still not face that barrier of rejection versus the opposite. Meaning if you have a high overall, but a low science, then they're like, ooh, because the curriculum in CRNA school is science. So they want to make sure your aptitude for science courses is high, because you have to maintain a B or better, or you risk dismissal from the program. So, and a lot of times, some schools are 80% benchmark. Other schools, you have to maintain an 85 or 86% to not get removed from the program. So it's pretty intense. So that's why they have such a high standard for science GPA. As far as, if you're closer to the 3.0 end, they'd worry you wouldn't be able to cut the requirement to maintain your GPA. So I guess what I'm trying to paint the picture of is, you're strong either way. So 3.5, 3.8, you're not going to more than likely have any issues getting an interview based on your GPA alone. Now, meeting the requirements is still important, meaning having that statistics within 5 years and having a B or better in all your prerequisite courses, including A&P. So because of those 2 things, you will have to retake those courses, but not because your GPA needs the help, but because it's just a prerequisite requirement. It will strengthen you overall in the GPA realm, but given your strength already, I don't think that that's going to be a barrier for you as far as getting an interview. Other things that could be barriers would be just your ICU experience, being in the ER for a year. Now you're in the CVICU, which is great, but you're still relatively new there. So in the big scheme of things, even though you have ER experience, they probably would start you off as kind of quote unquote a novice ICU experience nurse, even though I know you can argue all day long about ER experience. I think it's great experience, but they would look at you like, okay, you just started in the ICU. So if you apply after a year in the CVICU, you've had a year of ICU, even though you've technically had 2 years of nursing under your belt. So that, to me, I think the area that you'd have to focus heavily on is leadership roles and trying to get device trained while you're in the CVICU to show your clinical strength there.
Okay.
And your GPA, like I said, I don't think you need to lose sleep over your GPA.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Awesome. And the last, just some word of advice too. Obviously, you're retaking some courses. The last thing you want to do though is overload your plate with like, I'm going to do my CCRN and all these things. And what if you risk getting, a C in this advanced pathophysiology course, or not getting the B or better in your stats course? So be careful with how much you load on your plate, because you have a strong science GPA. But if you were to not do well in these courses that you have to take, that could be an unfortunately very negative deterrent. So just be really careful with how much you load up your plate.
Okay, definitely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Anthony.
So I would like to frame this along the lines of how to sell myself to get into an interview. I'm not really concerned with the ability to interview. That's kind of where my strengths lie. But to paint a picture for you, I don't want to spend a bunch of time trying to recover my GPA. After I get my BSN this December, I'll be sitting at a undergraduate of 2.86. I'm just going to live with that. But science and last 60 hours are 3.2. I have got 6 years in the ER, did 2 years of travel nursing, and I've cross-trained to the ICU. In the middle of cross-training, I've got my CCRN, trained CRRT, Impellas, doing balloon pumps next week, and heart recoveries. So I'm trying to do all of these extra things. I'm in a unit-based council with Float Pool. I'm in a nursing shared governance council with a subcommittee of evidence-based practice. So as you can see, I'm trying to shore up by overcompensating in all these other areas for my undergraduate being 2.86. It would take me 44 more credit hours of straight A's just to get a 3.0. So it's just not realistic.
So
what else can I do?
Yeah. Have you narrowed down your school search? I think you're going to lean into going to open houses and talking to whatever programs will actually give you time with them. Not all of them will, they just don't have the capacity. But leaning into going to open houses is really going to be where I would push you, and getting to know the program directors, meeting them at conferences, there's a conference called the ADCE. It's in February of every year, so you have time to kind of plan for it. But it's essentially an AANA conference just for CRNA faculty members. That would be gold for you to go to. If you're going to go to conferences at all, that would be where I would push you, because even though the annual Congress is great, there's so many CRNAs there. It's kind of like, and really you want to talk to the faculty members, the ones who are decision makers about who they learn in their programs and what matters to them, that kind of thing. So the ADCE conference, you can Google AANA, ADCE, and you'll find information about the upcoming conference in 2026. But I think in your situation, given the fact that you technically meet below the threshold to even apply at your overall GPA, you're going to have to really seek out schools who are willing to look at just your last 60 credit hours to consider your application. So it is possible. It has happened, but you have to kind of you have to be very specific on what schools you even apply to, because not all of them will be, or not all of them are going to be doing or able to do that. But they are out there. And I think once they get to know you and see and kind of meet you, especially at conferences and open houses, you're more likely to be able to get some good feedback on a path forward or not. I mean, most of them are pretty transparent. They'll say, sorry, it's just not the program that you should waste your time with. It's never going to happen. But then you might have programs where you're like, oh yeah, well, let's talk. Let's see what we can do and see if there's a way, if we consider your last 50 credit hours where we can just give you the chance to interview. So I think that'd be where I would push you, is trying to narrow down your CRNA school list to the ones who are willing to talk to you with that GPA and who will consider your last 60 credit hours for the chance to interview and be admitted.
Understood. Yeah, that's kind of. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Do you have any recent coursework though? I know you said your last 60 credit hours were 3.2, but when's the last time you took a science course or anything like that?
Oh, it would probably be 2019. My first bachelor's degree is all the way from 2007 to 2013.
Okay. So
yeah, it's a long time ago.
Okay. Yeah. So the other thing you can consider, I'm just trying to think of all the different things, right, is things like the GRE, right? A lot of times with a lower GPA, they like to see a strong GRE score. However, given that you haven't, what is it, 2025? So 6 years since you've been in the academic arena. Even if you were to take I know you don't want to take any courses, but this is so hard. So I know you don't want to hear this, but the reality is when you have an area of weakness, that's where you got to go. You got to go to the weakness. You can't, because no matter what kind of leadership roles you take or certifications you get, you have a giant hole, and your hole is the academics. And so you're not going to patch the hole with things that don't fit in the hole. It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. It just won't work. By taking a course, even if it's just one, you'll say, hey, look what I can do. I can prove it to you. I'm showing you academic proof. I am capable of getting an A in a graduate level science course. So the rest of it is just, it is what it is. You got to give me a chance. And so the proof is in the pudding. Is that what they say? I don't know if I'm getting the acronym right, but they want to see evidence that you are physically capable of getting an A in an advanced science course. I think even if you just did one course, I think you'll see a dramatic difference as far as faculty actually giving you kind of more time. Just because you are essentially addressing what your biggest weak point is, which is your GPA. Yes, you're not going to get to 3.0, like 44 credits. No, that's a lot. But if you even just took a 5 credit hour course and got an A, an advanced science level course, I think that would make a huge impact for your overall odds of getting an interview.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to head over to CRNAschoolprepacademy.com to gather free resources to help you on your CRNA journey. Stay strong. We're rooting for you, future CRNA.